Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grid Live pre-race. Very exciting pre-race show. We've been counting down all week, and we finally arrived to the big day. Practice qualifying for the NASCAR Busch Light Clash at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. Joe San Diego, along with Kobe Lambeth from the podium finish, and Adam Lemeries, our supercars expert. We invite everyone, all our viewers in the chat room, get engaged with us, share your questions, comments. We'll love to share them right here on the air. A big thank you to Colin, the show, Mark, and Robin, our monthly Patreon supporters. Every month they contribute to keep us on the air. And join Buy Me a Coffee. You could buy a cup of coffee for the Grid Network or one of our on air personalities and have your name displayed on the air for 1 week, like Edward Hunter, who bought coffee for us last week. So, got to start off right away with the Busch Clash, gentlemen. This is the 43rd running of the Busch Clash, and for the first time, we're covering it right here on Grid Live. And it's not your grandfather's Grid Live, Busch Clash anymore, because now it's no longer in Daytona. Where in the past, we used to have 25 laps or fewer from 1979 to 2000 in a shootout style. 2001, it expanded to 70 laps, and then we had various format changes throughout the history of Busch Clash. Now is a very different animal. Not even just a road course at Daytona. It's no longer in Daytona. It's in a stadium built from 1920s in Los Angeles, in a major city that hosts USC football. It has hosted the World Series, the first Super Bowl, all sorts of historic concerts, events, and now the NASCAR Cup Series. Totally different event from just the past Busch clashes, and the format, as I mentioned, is very different. Taking a look at the format, as you can see, four 25 lap heat races, two last chance qualifiers. The top four finishers of each heat race and the top three finishers of each qualifier advance to the clash. And of course, there is the points provisional as well for the highest driver on points that didn't come in. And before we get to our first question, we're already seeing the chat room one person, Josh Place, in the car on the way home, ready for practice. So definitely, this is going to be a very exciting practice to see them on the track for the first time. Adam, Kobe, does this feel like a revitalization of the Clash or a new era separate from the Daytona Clash era?
Well, Joe, it really feels like a rebirth of the Busch Light Clash because, as you know, in recent years, it feels like this event has truly lost this special feeling that we used to feel back in the day. Really excited to come off from the long off-season break, first day of school, getting ready to get started with a brand new season on NASCAR racing. But towards the end of the Daytona era of the Busch Clash, it just really turned into nothing more than just the old wreck fest, and people just got tired. We saw a lot of silly things, a lot of silly wrecks, and I believe the last year on the Daytona Oval, we saw almost everybody in that entire race crash out, and it just got to a point of just ridiculousness where it just become a race that was just a giant meme, and nobody really took it so seriously. It was just one of those things to be like, hey, I get paid to drive, so I'm just gonna show up and do my job, get paid, and go home. That's basically what the Busch Clash had become, and I thought it was exciting that the last time around they utilized the Daytona road course as you mentioned. I thought that was something new, especially the first NASCAR road course race under the lights. Thought that was really cool for the Cup Series to do that. But but moving this to Los Angeles in the LA market, I think it's going to be big for the entire sport, and I think this may be a huge success for NASCAR. Not just giving the fans something new, but people outside who aren't your traditional NASCAR fans. It gives them an opportunity to get attached to NASCAR as well.
Yeah, I'll agree with you, Kobe. And I think it's pretty cool to have the Busch Light Clash, the LA Coliseum, or have the Busch Light Clash at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. You're mentioning, Joe, this Coliseum is home to the University of Southern California, where they play college football in the fall. They actually had an exhibition game between the Boston Red Sox and Los Angeles Dodgers a few years ago. And actually, racing at the LA Coliseum is not new. Back in the day, the Mickey Thompson's back in the day, the Mickey Thompson Stadium Off Road Grand Prix Series. actually held an event there, and they actually went up, through, and down the peristyles, which was really cool. So to me, I think it's really cool to see NASCAR coming here to LA. Some of the Grand Marshals tomorrow are Dave Roberts, the manager of the Los Angeles Dodgers. You're going to have Jim Abbott, a former Major League Baseball pitcher. Matt Leinart is going to be given command, a former starting quarterback at USC. Misty May Trainer, a lady who has played beach volleyball and represented USA in the Olympics among the Grand Marshals. So I think it's going to be awesome. I can't wait to see what happens. And from what I've heard, it's going to be, what a way to kick off NASCAR in 2022. Last year, NASCAR on Fox said it was going to be the greatest year ever. Well, I think 2022 could top it, and we'll find out tomorrow night after the dust settles in the historic Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum.
It is a very historic event and a historic venue. Some of the comments in the chat room, very tight circuit, bound to be a ton of full course yells. I have to say, I think that's a given. Short track racing, even when you just have 23 cars, it is still a really tight track. And then also from Josh Blaze, is there a contract to host a clash at LA because they've done a lot of work? Yes, there is. There is an option for NASCAR return back in 2023 and 2024. Really good moves, especially if this event is a huge success and there's a huge demand for next year. They could come back. They know they have that in contract. And how long is the practice? From what we understand, it's a 2-hour practice session in the Busch Clash. So all the drivers get some practice time before we go into qualifying, which will be today. And of course, practice is going to start, as we mentioned, fairly soon. So definitely, we encourage everyone to share your questions, comments before practice gets on the air. One of the big things, this track is by far the shortest ever in the modern era of NASCAR. The quarter-mile track has some banking, 2.5 degrees, but not a lot of room. So it's a tight, short track racing in the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. And this venue is going to be playing more historical roles later on. In 2020, it'll be the first venue to have the Olympic Games for 3 times. That is going to be something where the city of LA is going to tie Paris, France, and London for the most summer games hosted at 3. But the LA Coliseum will be the first to have 3 times the games there. One of the big things, of course, for the LA Coliseum, this is one of the biggest venues when it comes to modern stadiums in the United States, because along with the football field, it has a track and field layout from the Olympic Games from prior to the current modern day stadiums, where you see them mostly focused on football or even just soccer. So my question for you guys, starting with you, Adam, is the LA Coliseum the best venue to essentially bring NASCAR to a stadium? We know some fans were suggesting Bowman Gray, which is a football stadium, but there is a racetrack around it that hosts weekly NASCAR racing. And even some have suggested Bristol. Is this the best venue, the LA Coliseum?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. And you were mentioning Bowman Gray Stadium, Joe. There's actually a college, Winston-Salem State University in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, that uses Bowman Gray Stadium for their home college football games. It is an HBCU, which stands for Historically Black College and University. So, since this is Black History Month, and Josh Blaze says, right, I'm back in my motorsports control center now. Now time to set up all the timing screens. Thanks again for your comment, Josh. We really do appreciate it. I can say I've also been to Bristol Motor Speedway. It's only a few hours from me here in North Carolina, and there's a person on Twitter who has the name NA. He goes by NAS. He goes by NAS Sarcasm, NASCARASM, and he actually did a story on NASCAR.com of where NASCAR could hold unique races in the future. And one of the places that he mentioned was Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky. We all know it's home to the famous Kentucky Derby every year, but maybe hosting a NASCAR race there. I mean, it is a horse racing facility, and fans, you know, you know, you know how many people go out there every year, to watch the Kentucky Derby. So I think it'd be kind of cool if NASCAR were to take a look at a place like that, to host a NASCAR exhibition race in the future. I mean, uh, there's so many unique possibilities where NASCAR could go, but I think it's pretty cool to see NASCAR racing in the LA Coliseum. I think a lot of fans are going to tune in tomorrow and just enjoy it. And it's going to be one of the coolest and unique places that I've ever seen to host a NASCAR race. I can't wait.
Yeah, and as I was just saying, talking about the LA market, I think that's the big reason why we're seeing an event like this. Yeah, yes, it would have been nice, to have some nostalgia of NASCAR Cup Series at Bowman Gray Stadium, like that. That would be really exciting. But unfortunately, with the time we live in, yeah, they'll be good for a certain demographic, but you're not gonna reach a more widespread market by bringing NASCAR Cup Series racing to Bowman Gray. So what do? You basically gotta pack up Bowman Gray and ship it across to the West Coast and into Los Angeles. And I think that's the best way to do this. You can take Bowman Gray, bring it up, put it on the move, and bring it to a lot more people. And in Los Angeles, everyone knows it's filled with celebrities and a lot of entertainers. UFC's Dana White's going to be on Ross Chastain's car this weekend. It's all the news this week. Floyd Money Mayweather going to be bringing the money racing team to the NASCAR Cup Series with Kaz Grala. There's just a ton of excitement about NASCAR in LA, Hollywood, that area. That's going to help expose NASCAR to a brand new audience. And a lot of the data NASCAR shared so far saying that a majority of the people who will be attending the event in person at the LA Coliseum this week have never ever been to a NASCAR race in person, and that's huge for NASCAR that you can attract someone who doesn't really pay attention to the sport like your diehards do, but they're willing to buy an event to watch NASCAR race in the Coliseum. I think this could really be a huge success for the sport in general, and moving forward. NASCAR is talking about. I know you already talked about the option of NASCAR racing in Los Angeles Coliseum for the next couple of years. If this year is a success, there's also been talk by NASCAR executives that NASCAR Coliseum racing could go international for the Busch Clash in the future. How cool would it be to see the NASCAR Cup Series racing those next gen cars across the pond in the UK at Wembley Stadium? That would be quite a sight to see. I'm sure you guys would agree with me.
Or even Mount Panorama Bathurst in Australia. How cool would that be to see, to have those next gen cars go down Conrad Strait at or close to 300 kilometers an hour? And I wonder if we would get any supercar drivers wanting to compete with the
One of the
NASCAR
big,
drivers. I mean, hey, we can all dream.
one of the big things I think is really exciting about international potentials. You open up to some world class stadiums out there. As you mentioned, Kobe, Wembley Stadium. I think of Azteca Stadium in Mexico City. We've seen the NFL hold games there, and of course Mexico City. They got Formula One. I think NASCAR would love to say, "Hey, we're just north of you guys. You could come to LA. You come into Texas for a future race." But here we are putting on a show, and I think a big influence too with the stadium idea has to be the race of International Race of Champions. This weekend they're going on in Sweden, but they've had races in, of course, stadiums around the world. Now we do have a question in the chat room. When is the race? The race is going to start tomorrow. The main event, the Busch Clash, will start at about 6 p.m. Eastern. I know the heat races are going to start early. I believe it's noon Eastern. Is that correct, Kobe?
No, it's actually gonna be starting at 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. The heat races.
So the heat race is 3 p.m. Eastern, and then the main one, the Busch Clash, at 6 p.m. Eastern. And definitely, we're happy to share that information with you, Hampton. And thank you for tuning in today. And we encourage all our viewers, if you're in the chat room, especially if this is your first time, say hello. Let us know which city you're in. Of course, we know Kobe and Adam are both in North Carolina. I'm in Oregon, Portland, Oregon, the Grid Network, and Hampton again. I think the class should be in Sebring. That would be something else to see those cars and the bumps. Oh man, that'll be a lot of fun. I think a lot of intense racing. And for me, the LA Coliseum, the market there is, I think, the huge win for NASCAR. You have so many fans that have never been to a NASCAR race. This is their first time going to a NASCAR race in LA, right there in the city. So you could take public transit. You could, if you're lucky enough, walk to the NASCAR race at the Coliseum. You're in the city, so plenty of options of things to do. And I think, especially for investors, when it comes to like sponsors, all that, this is just huge because, as we mentioned in Grid Race Vibes, there are several airports besides LAX you fly to. There's several communities nearby that could all come to here. LA is essentially the hub area of Southern California. This is just a big win to get NASCAR out there. And I see Joshua plays Sweet Carolina and then reference to the song by Neil Diamond. So LA Coliseum, I feel this was just the best move for NASCAR to do when it comes to trying something different venue wise for the Busch Clash. Yes, the nostalgia of Bowman Gray would have been great, but Small Speedway is a great venue. It just is pretty remote compared to LA, and LA, the market there, this is going to be a big win for NASCAR.
Yeah, definitely gonna be a big win for NASCAR. And looking at the qualifying format to get into the main event, this is gonna make single car qualifying tonight really important. The top four drivers in each heat race will advance to the class. You can see there on the screen looking at the graphic. Heat one will have the fastest, fifth fastest, ninth, and so on. So, guys, here's my question for you. Do you believe the top four drivers from single car qualifying in each heat will advance into the class without needing the last chance qualifier, or does the tight bull ring mean they'll likely get moved out of the way?
I feel if you're starting up front, you have a good advantage. I feel the pole sitter, as you see, the pole sitter, they're going to be essentially the fifth fastest car will be their closest competition from qualifying. Now, if there's a big change between when they qualify the heat race, that pole sitter may not be able to run away because that's the big thing. I feel if you're up front, try to put some distance between you and the car behind you because if not, you just might get out of pushed out of the way. Especially that battle for fourth place, I think is really going to be intense because we've seen everyone's going to try to get into fourth place, that final transfer spot into the Busch class. Where if you're first, second, and you know you got a good distance between third or fourth place, you may want to stay in second place or even third place so you're comfortably in the field. Fourth place is where the big battle is going to be, and I feel especially with this format and the tightness of this track, I do anticipate a lot of yellow flags, a lot of cautions, breaks. So it's going to be something where I think the leader, even if they have a fast car, they just got to make sure the perfect restart. We got the choose rule this weekend and the perfect setup. Stay up front as much as you can so you don't get pushed out of the way.
Anybody ever heard of the term the bump and run? We've seen it at Bristol, Martinsville, North Wilkesboro was on the schedule. I think we could see the bump and run take place at, in the Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum because everyone's going to be one, especially if everyone's going to be going, to score a top four finish. It's going to be interesting to see what happened, for qualifying later on tonight. And I think the bump and run will be a huge factor, not only for qualifying, but the heat races, and especially the Busch Light Clash. And I also have to mention the last chance qualifier. I think the bump and run will be a big factor all weekend long.
Yes, and Harvick once said, I'll be surprised if this weekend doesn't end with bent fenders and hurt feelings because this LA Coliseum bull ring definitely is going to bring that out, and a lot of the drivers are going to be going so slow around this track, and in order to win this race, you're going to need to be in the right place at the right time, have track position, and have a slow, methodical approach without getting too impatient. And I know a lot of teams are nervous with these next gen cars since there's not a lot of supply out there for these cars. So if you tear up your car, some of these teams might be in a little trouble to start off the season. And that's why some people actually criticize using the next gen car in the Busch Clash, because they figured it was best to get all your equipment to Daytona as they continue to build up the supply line. But let's be honest, and NASCAR has this event in LA to show off their cool new next gen car, and nobody's going to be interested in wanting to see the Gen 6 car over again. So there's definitely obviously a lot of hype surrounding this big event, and it will not surprise me if we see a post race scuffle at the end of this one, because this is a bull ring slam and bang short track racing NASCAR style. And looking at the format again, the 6 remaining drivers who failed to advance from each heat will have another shot to race their way in through the 2 last chance qualifier race we were talking about. Both of them 50 laps each. The top 3 from each race advance to the main event. So 22 drivers will get in the class by racing their way in, and 1 points provisional to the highest driver in points from 2021. Not locked in, bringing us to 23 starters. So automatically, last year's NASCAR Cup Series champion Kyle Larson is locked in. But if he races his way in, it will go down to the next driver in points that needs to use that provisional. Do you expect a major surprise like a big name not making it to the main event?
I do. There's there's so much good talent in NASCAR, that's appearing at the Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum. We have new drivers with new teams, new teammates. You got to start. One of the big things is Brad Keselowski's now at RFK. Went over from Penske. You have Ross Chastain, who is a team, who's in NASCAR full time this year. So I think I could see a big name not making it into the Busch Light Clash tomorrow night. Because everyone wants to find their way to compete. In the inaugural running, and everyone's going to be out there going for broke, trying to make it in. And I think we will see a couple major surprises not making it to the main event. I'm not going to mention any drivers though.
Yeah, I feel we are going to see a couple surprises not make it in the Busch Clash, because the big thing, this is a short track. We know if this was a track such as the 1.5 ovals, like for example the All-Star Open, when you're trying to race your way in, we know there's some drivers out there, they don't have the equipment to get into the All-Star race. However, it's a short track. Aerodynamics not going to be the biggest deal. Horsepower not going to be the biggest deal. The biggest deal will be getting off those corners really well, putting the power down. So some handling will be a big aspect, and definitely just trying to get that downforce so you can have a good launch off those corners. And that really opens up to a bunch of drivers, because almost all these drivers have cut their teeth on the short tracks. But now I think it's going to be very even. And I think for some of the drivers, as you mentioned, Adam, Brad Keselowski, he's with a new team. We know if you're a driver with a new team, sometimes it takes a few races to get that chemistry right, get the communication right, the setup correct. Somebody like him, Austin Cindric, I think they could miss out, and I think that could be a little bit of a shock to everyone. But of course, it's a short track. The unpredictable could happen. Can you imagine if a big name driver's in 4th place and somebody from a smaller team like Eric Jones or even a Michael McDowell in 5th place gives them the bumper and gets in, forcing that driver in the last chance qualifier? Overall, I think if you were one of the playoff drivers last year, the top 16, I anticipate them to make it in. But still, that's just anticipate. A crash, LCQ, miss out, could be game over and they'll be out of the Busch Clash. And I think that would be a shock to everybody.
And for me, I think one of the biggest wins with this race format is only one person is locked in, And that's the defending Cup Series champion Kyle Larson in a way, but obviously comparing apples and oranges here gives me Indy 500 qualifying vibes because you don't know who's going to be in the race, and a big name driver could technically miss the race. I know we have the 36 charter teams here, but if someone who even won a Cup race last year has a awful weekend in Los Angeles, that they won't be in the Busch Clash, and if an underdog driver who doesn't typically run up front gets in, that's going to be a huge win for them. So I think this format is definitely going to bring us a lot of surprises. I mean, it's such a simple format, and that is something we don't often say in NASCAR. Simple and easy to understand. If you remember the All Star race format from Texas last year, and I'll be honest to you, right here in 2022, I still don't understand. I could go back and I could pull it up on my screen right now, try to read through it. I still don't understand the format. I think simplicity is the answer. This format is simple, straightforward, easy for even a casual onlooker to understand how to get into the show. Kyle Larson only one locked in. The top four in each race gonna have to race their way in, and then the less chance qualifiers, and after that get the points per visual and you in the race. It's just so simple as that. And the Busch Light Clash main event itself is gonna be a 150 lap race, being a super short track style bull ring. In 50 laps gonna go by quickly. However, a race break concert will serve as a break for the drivers and entertainment for the fans around lap 75, adding a halftime show to a NASCAR race. 150 laps, a short quarter mile with 2.5 degrees of banking. Is that enough time to start from the back and get to the front if you fail to, do well in your heat races?
Overall, I feel if you don't have a whole lot of cautions or a planned race break, no, it won't be. Because if you're in the back and you say the pole sitter from the winner of Heat 1 is in the field, they're going to be coming up on you quickly. We've seen in Bristol, Martinsville, how the leader is usually in lap traffic really quickly. The big thing, if you're in the LCQ race, you've been racing a lot more extra compared to the winner of Heat 1. So, the caution flags, I mean, we've seen in the past Martinsville go a long time without a caution flag. I don't anticipate in this race just because of the nature of it, but we could be surprised. That 75 lap race break will be a huge benefit to anyone that's on the lead lap that still has a shot at winning the race. Because if you're 15th or 16th, you can make those adjustments, you can make those changes and come back in that second half. So overall, I think this format of a race break really just ensures that, hey, we don't just have a caution-free one car dominate. I recall even one time North Wilkesboro, we had a caution-free race there where we saw Jeff Bodine essentially lap almost the entire field there. So I think this is a really smart move by NASCAR. Of course, I will be shocked if we don't have at least two caution flags. I anticipate a lot of cautions, but we could be surprised. I think NASCAR did the right move with this race break.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that, Joe. And actually, to give the fans some perspective, in the early years of the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, they actually did have race breaks in the middle, to give the teams, a refreshing and, get ready for the second half of the race. So I can say I like it. And it's, I think it'll be really good for the fans, since, they do get some halftime entertainment. And I can say I like this format a lot. It's easy, it's easy to understand. And maybe if NASCAR's smart, if this format works, why not try to use it in the All-Star race? You're mentioning, Kobe, you still don't understand the rules from last year's All-Star race to Texas. I got to agree with you. I can go back and watch that All-Star race again, and I still don't understand it. So I like the format. I like the halftime break, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens, tomorrow night. I know I just got to find a feel the ratings for this are going to be really big since it is in the Los Angeles market.
Yeah, and I'm sure NASCAR really hopes that the ratings are going to be through the roof. And right now, as we're speaking, coverage of NASCAR Busch Light Clash practice, the very first practice session of 2022, is just beginning on FS2. Cars are coming through the tunnel and getting out on the track for first practice. So we're all really excited to see how that's going to go today. And to answer the question. I, I think there's going to be a ton of chaos at the LA Coliseum. So and plus 150 laps. So I don't really think it matters where you start, front, middle, or back, because they're going to be contact and be moving out of the way. Although I would prefer to have track position start at the front because it makes your life a lot easier. Obviously, if you're starting 23rd, you're gonna have to dodge a lot of issues. So if there's like a pile up, you might get into it. So I think the best place you need to be is out front, and I really expect this to be quite a chaotic clash, especially since since the caution laps aren't going to count. So if you 150 laps of green flag racing, so it's going to be really wild. And the clash and the fences had different race formats. Some with 20 lap races, some years 10 lap heats, mandatory pit stop, or other various formats. And last year, as you mentioned, they did the Daytona Road Course, something different. Is the Busch Light Clash the best event to try something unique? What about the future of the All Star race with a format like this in the Busch Clash? Does it kind of make the All Star race feel irrelevant as like one need to go, or should we keep both?
I think we should keep both. The All Star race has been going on for a long, long time. I like, I like I was just saying, I really like this format a lot for the Busch Light Clash, the Coliseum, and I think it's, you know, why not do something crazy like this? To start off the season. Hey, I mean, if it's success, if this weekend is a success, and NASCAR does have at least at the LA Coliseum for at least a couple more years, I say, um, I say, keep the format the way it is and use this format going forward, especially at the All Star race. It's a format that, if you're a casual NASCAR fan, uh, it's easy to understand. If you're a diehard NASCAR fan, it's easy to understand. So hopefully NASCAR will keep this format not only for this weekend's Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum, but hopefully down the road we'll see this format used in the All Star race. Um, I mean, I don't have a problem with it.
For me, I think with this format, it's great. I think this will work also great in the Bristol Dirt event. I mean, we have heat races there. We know about the big dust cloud. To have just 23 cars in the main of Bristol on dirt, I think that'll be huge. As for where this puts the All Star race, I think this puts pressure on the All Star race actually, and raises the question: do we really need two of these events? I feel with the All Star race, especially as we talked about, sort of lost its big appeal. One of the big challenges, of course, different formats. Last year's format, they were in Texas this year, didn't seem to be the biggest draw. And now you have this race, the Busch Light Clash. It's going to be a huge spectacle event. I mean, just last night I was seeing Bubba Wallace, other people tweeting about the big cons from System of a Down and Korn. Then we're going to have more concerts. Then you have all the on track racing, a pre race concert with Pitbull, and then Ice Cube for the halftime show. This puts a lot of pressure on, okay, what are you going to do to make the All Star race in Texas Motor Speedway as appealing as this race? And this is where I start to think maybe there's not enough room for these two events and maybe just one. The Busch Light Clash could be a perfect way to start off the season and sort of become the new official or unofficial All Star race. If the All Star race really wants something big, I think you got to look at doing something similar to the Busch Light Clash. Maybe having another second stadium or a street course track in the city where you bring out NASCAR's biggest and brightest stars for the All Star race. But I think this is going to change the dynamic of the Busch Light Clash if successful. I don't think we'll see the Busch Light Clash return to Daytona anytime soon if this is a big event. And I think this encourages NASCAR to look into making the All Star race something like this in a stadium, in a street course, and not at the traditional racetracks anymore.
Yeah, Joe. Totally agree with you. I mean, the All Star race in Texas is not really going to get get a lot of people excited because it's your traditional mile and a half racetrack. Is not in the stadium like atmosphere in a big market or anything like that. So I think when you compare the Busch Light Clash and the LA Coliseum to the All Star race at Texas or even the All Star race at Charlotte, definitely Los Angeles is going to beat them by many, many miles. And I think that NASCAR is destined for a lot of success here because of all the work they done put into this. I remember when they first announced it, a lot of people thought they were crazy for trying something like this, since this is something we haven't really seen. They used to race at Bowman Gray back in the state, but in this type of market, in this type of atmosphere, this is something so unprecedented that NASCAR is trying. I do give them credit for taking risks and putting together this Busch Light Clash in the city of the Angels, Los Angeles.
Yeah, I think it's great to see the City of Angels, Los Angeles, get to host this event. And of course, we encourage everyone, be sure to subscribe to the Grid Network. We post a video called Race 5 Los Angeles where we give recommendations on sites and places to see while you're in LA, including the spectacular Peterson Automotive Museum. I recommend that. And one of the big things, LA is a big city, so it has a lot of big city vibes. And of course, everyone that has been to a massive stadium like this, especially a bowl design stadium, he can tell you it gets loud there with the fans. Whether it's fans at a college football, NFL event, even we've heard folks talk about Bristol. It's really extra loud for even the teams to try to communicate with each other. This place is anticipated to be loud and electric, not only because of the on track action, but because of some of the additional entertainment. We got that pre race concert with Pitbull. Now, of course, he's part of Trackhouse Racing co owner Dare with Justin Marks. And then a race break concert with Ice Cube, who, of course, is born and raised in Los Angeles. The last time we had an in race performance like this was this 2006 All Star race, Red Hot Chili Peppers performed. And then we have DJ Ski. For fans not familiar with him, Minnesota Vikings at all their home games, he is the DJ there. So he plays between the downs, between timeouts, entertaining the crowd, keep them hyped up and energized. And I anticipate as he's playing some fresh music during the caution flag periods, that's just going to keep the fans engaged, motivated, and energized throughout the race. And of course, considering the high likelihood of first time viewers and people attending this event in Los Angeles, starting with you, Adam, is this all the right steps for NASCAR to make a memorable first impression?
Yes. And you were mentioning racing and you were mentioning racing on a street course. Well, to get some viewers some perspective, the old NASCAR Featherlight Southwest Series actually did have a street course event around the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. I believe it was from 1998 until 2000, and a couple of drivers that were participating in that event were Kevin Harvick and Kurt Busch. So they're used to running near the LA Memorial Coliseum. But I gotta say, this is one of the coolest things NASCAR has ever done. As many of you know, I've been watching NASCAR for a long, long time. You're gonna see, some of, people well known in the music industry. We're gonna have so many grand marshals there tomorrow. You're probably gonna have so many celebrities and that love motorsports, that love cars there. I wouldn't be surprised if we see someone like Jay Leno there, who we all know loves NASCAR. I think what NASCAR is doing, having this exhibition race at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, I can say it's awesome, it's cool, and I think what NASCAR is doing is going in the right direction.
Yeah, I think NASCAR is definitely going in the right direction. And the first group of drivers just finished up their little practice session. They'll get more track time later in the session. But as of right now, Christopher Bell's fastest a whopping 14 seconds. He only takes 14 seconds to get around this LA Coliseum bull ring at only 64 miles per hour. So, as I was saying earlier in the show, a slow, methodical approach and staying out of trouble is definitely going to be one of the keys to winning this race. And looking at the entertainment aspect of things, I really like what NASCAR is doing, like reaching into this new demographic, the younger population, all into all the uh, uh, into the hip hop and rap and and all of that. And I understand a lot of the criticism about NASCAR, having the pre-race announcer at Pitbull and that. And then the halftime show at Ice Cube is that NASCAR is getting away from your traditional demographic of concert. I I know at NASCAR race you expect concert from what's the name Kid Rock or Jason Aldean and the country music and all of that and I don't think there's anything wrong with country music. I like listening to country music myself, but at the same time you have to realize that as time moves on things change, and if you don't move with times you're going to get left behind. So NASCAR doesn't really have a choice but to reach out to this new demographic, to the people who like Pitbull, to the people who like Ice Cube. Yes, there's gonna be places for the Kid Rocks and the Jason Aldeans of the world if you really love country. But if NASCAR really wants to maximize the potential of the LA Coliseum, they have to go towards this demographic. It's just a sign of times, and you have to move forward or get left out.
Yeah, sign of the times, and then also I think it just adds that local flavor of having Ice Cube there from Los Angeles, representing the West Coast. I mean, this is really, I think, a smart move by NASCAR in so many areas. The biggest one I feel is the experience. A lot of times we hear about new stadiums, new venues. They talk about the fan experience, whether it is, for example, the Legion Stadium in Las Vegas that has the what was the Oakland Raiders, now the Las Vegas Raiders. They got Wi-Fi for the fans. They make it easy for the fans to share their experience. And I really could relate to one thing I remember when I was at Alaska Raceway Park. The track manager there didn't just want just an announcer. They're like, I want a race DJ. So they're between the caution flags, the red flags, we keep the fans engaged, excited, wanting to come back. I think this is something where it's really smart. We're in a stadium atmosphere. During the caution flags, nothing wrong with listening to the radio broadcast from MRN, PRN, whoever's doing the radio broadcast at each track. But if you have a DJ there making some more music, if they have even just a t-shirt gun to give away free t-shirts, those are all little things that just adds to the experience. When a person say, I went to the biggest party of my life, the LA Coliseum, that was a NASCAR race. And just saying top speed 64, average speed 64 miles per hour, about 14-second lap, gotta remember, I believe it's about 15 or 16 seconds to get a lap in Bristol Motor Speedway. So that's really a flying lap at such a track at 64 miles at the Coliseum. You're going highway interstate speed limit of 65 on a stadium. That's just amazing. This event, this is one of the largest fields for the Busch Light Clash. Now, of course, all the charter teams have been are in the LA Coliseum area. Of course, as you see in the entry list, yellow indicates Chevrolet, blue indicates Ford, and red does indicate Toyota. And this is the first time all of them for this event. Plus, first time for this car in a race environment where prize money is on the line for where you finish. And of course, we know not everyone's going to transfer. 13 teams will go home and not make it to the Busch Clash, but compared to the past where it was only pole sitters or some certain vehicles on depending on where they finish and the manufacturers, we got it to where now everybody, all the chart teams have opportunity to get in, and this is going to be something where I think it's going to be very unpredictable. And one of the big things with this unpredictable course being so short, it's going to come down to who has a good qualifying time. Definitely, practice might be a good indicator, but Kobe, I got to ask you, how unpredictable is this field in this event, and are there any favorites?
Oh, well, I think it's going to be super unpredictable. And it's even more unpredictable since we had the brand new next gen car coming in. And I know a lot of people have been debating, like, since the NASCAR season started now, are we going to just start calling the Gen 7 car now? And since next gen is already here, and I know with the car tomorrow, they still call it the car tomorrow, but that's a discussion for another day. But yeah, to answer the question, I think it's going to be super unpredictable. And I can't really say for sure who the favorites are going to be, but by the usual suspects in his 10,000 short track races. Denny Hamlin probably has to be at the top of the list. Kyle Busch, although he has less seat time in the next car compared to some of the others, think he's going to be strong as well. Cannot Hendrick Motorsports or Team Penske drivers Joel Logano and Ryan Blaney. If I had to pick any favorite, I think that would be a good crowd of drivers to go with.
Yeah, I'll agree with you, Kobe. This race is going to be really unpredictable, and you're mentioning you mentioned some drivers that could be fair. It's all another favorite has to be Kyle Larson. He's from Southern California. He's the only driver locked into the field, and he is the defending NASCAR Cup Series champion. Uh, we started last year with 10 wins. And and you mentioned Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch. You know, we saw, uh, I'll say, don't count out people like William Byron, and I'll even give Eric Almirola a shot. It's his last full year in NASCAR before he retires. So, why not start off your year by winning probably one of the biggest races of them all? Hey, I think I can say it's to me, like I said for Daytona and Talladega, anything can happen, will happen. It usually does happen. And I think we could say the same thing about, this inaugural race at the LA Coliseum.
This inaugural race at the Coliseum, it's wide open. I feel there's really every driver I feel feels like they could come in here and win before qualifying. Once qualifying is done, that's where I think some drivers will know we got a bigger road up ahead, and some drivers knows we're the favorite. Let's do what we need to do and get in the clash. Now, as you mentioned, some of those early favorites, Hamlin, Keselowski, Kyle Busch, Larson, Elliott, Kevin Harvick, they are all really good at short track in the Cup Series. But we're in a brand new short track, and I think, as you mentioned, Adam, with Eric Almirola, it is something where I do anticipate at least a couple surprises in the main Busch Clash. So Adam, I gotta start with you. Which surprise driver do you feel will make the Busch Clash?
Oh boy, that's a good question, Joe. I'm gonna say I'll give. We had the entry list here to the left side of me, so I'll go out there and I'll just make a crazy prediction. I'll go out there and say Michael McDowell. He won the Daytona 500 a couple years ago, or last year. So, Eric Almirola, you have smaller teams with drivers like Cody Ware, BJ McLeod. So I'll give a surprise. I'll say Michael McDowell. Why not?
And instead of focusing on the drivers themselves, I'm going to focus on two teams. I think that can potentially surprise everyone. We saw towards the end of last season, Bubba Wallace 23-11 racing making a lot of significant gains in that big win at Talladega, and adding the veteran Kurt Busch is expected to be a heat show to a young driver like Bubba Wallace. I think this can be a huge opportunity for 2311 racing that shows how much they've grown just over this last couple of months during the offseason with the addition of Kurt Busch. I know he's really going to help out with feedback and help make their cars much faster. And knowing Kurt Busch's history, when he goes to a team, he usually leaves it much better than what he found it. And that's exactly what he did with Chip Ganassi Racing before they departed NASCAR and some of his other previous stops as well. So it not surprised me to see Kurt Busch and Bubba Wallace do really well for that team, and also the team we've known as Roush Fenway over the years now. Roush Fenway Keselowski racing with Brad Keselowski coming on board. I know in recent years, Roush has been nothing more than just a mid-pack team, borderline playoff team. And I think Brad Keselowski is very bright, innovative, has some great ideas that he can throw at Jack Roush, and maybe we can see Roush return to his glory days with Brad Keselowski leading the way. And looking at the practice board already with this year's Busch Light Clash, I already seen some surprises like rookie Todd Gilliland up in the top 5. He's never run in the Cup Series before. Have Cody Ware from Referral Racing up there too. Ty Dillon, Petty GMS is really cool seeing all of those names up there, and all the hype with the next gen cars that's going to make it a lot easier for those smaller teams to compete against the big teams. And yes, this is just practice, only some minutes in, but I think it'll be really cool and good for the sport if we can get back to how it used to be back in the day, where on occasion we can see a small team hit the right setup and go out there and compete against the big teams of NASCAR.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting. I think seeing the big teams up front is always expected, but seeing the little teams come up, and one driver I'm making a bold prediction is going to qualify for the Busch Clash, Ryan Preece. I see him getting there. He is a veteran short track racer. I see him getting in the Busch Clash, which a lot of people I think will be surprised to see him get in. Especially he doesn't have a full time ride. He's with Stewart Haas Racing as the backup driver, just in case the driver's unavailable. So I think Ryan Preece is going to try to steal the show. And speaking about trying to steal the show, it's time for see if we're going to pick anybody to steal the show and pick a winner.
That's right, Joe. It's time for everybody's favorite portion of the pre-race show. Pick a winner. We take a look at our leaderboard. There's a 6-way tie for first after all the action last weekend at the 24 Hours Daytona and the Formula E season opener. Our winner, our pick a winner Twitter, our pick a winner for fans last year, Alex. He's got Kyle Larson, and if you want to participate, use the hashtag pick a winner on social media. Now it's time we make our picks, and I'll go first. Last year, our colleague Joe Semiego always went with Kyle Larson. Well, I'm gonna have that momentum this year because I'm going with the only driver locked into the. I'm going with the driver that's the only driver locked in to the Busch Light Clash, the Coliseum. Yeah, I'm feeling Joe's thunder, and I'm going Kyle Larson.
I'm going to surprise you. I'm not going with Kyle Larson. I'm going to go with a driver who just seems to win when you least expect it at the most random time, and he won the last time we were at a short track. The 48, Alex, the showman, Bowman, is going to steal the headlines and take the thunder and lead this show to victory lane.
Yes, Alex Bowman is quite a random race winner. It seems like whenever Alex Bowman wins at a track, something crazy happens. So Bowman wins the clash. Will probably be the last one at the LA Coliseum, one and done. But I'm gonna go with another Hendrick driver, like Adam said, still in the thunder from you. I'm gonna go with the only driver who's currently locked into the show, Kyle Larson. I think he's gonna keep the good times rolling into 2022. And before we end our show, we want to encourage you to like and subscribe to Grid Network here on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Consider taking 5 minutes after our show and join our Patreon page to invest in Grid Network. Keep us on the air long term. Click the link in the video description below, and you can buy coffee for your favorite on-air talent. Any amount will help us continue growing our motorsports media outlet. Visit public.com, the stock market social media home. A link and referral code below will give you $5 to invest immediately. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends. You can make new friends and use tools to learn how to properly invest in the stock market. Tomorrow, join us no later than 90 minutes following the Busch Light Clash to recap all the LA Coliseum chaos on Grid Live Wrap-Up. For Joe Samniego and Adam Limmeries, I'm Kobe Levitt from the Podium Finish. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the Busch Light Clash.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.